What's your homeowners association horror story? In former neighborhood, HOA board wanted to replace the fence that surrounded the entire neighborhood. Just the perimeter fence so that the neighborhood would look nice to the outside. Of course, two board members' houses also sat on the perimeter, so their fences would have been upgraded, which is fine. The cost was only a couple $100 per household, one-time fee. But to pass the fee they held a meeting in a little 20-person local library room. Hundreds of community members flooded in to demand an explanation or at least hear it out. One community member had done some research. Per HOA bylaws, they were supposed to have obtained 3 quotes. They only got one. Same member also dove a little further and found out that the quote had come from a brother-in-law of one of the HOA board members. Very sketchy. So the community demanded 2 more quotes, which both came in at about half of what the brother-in-law's contracting service had quoted. Edit. Wow. I didn't expect to get the traction this did. A couple of people are correct that, yes, this isn't so much a horror story, so I apologize for that. However, I hope it gives a reason to look further into big changes in a HOA-controlled community. I believe the 6 to 7 board members were all older retirees with nothing better to do than spend their day patrolling the neighborhood. Our collective feeling was that the cost didn't provide the benefit, and was why the small library room the HOA decided to hold their meeting was so laughable. Our neighborhood HOA tried to make us remove the ivy from our house. After combing through the bylaws, there was nothing stating we couldn't have ivy. I put my foot down hard and told them if they made me remove my beloved ivy, then I would put 50 pink flamingos in my yard, because there was no rule about it. They left us alone after that. Co-worker lived in a very expensive and very high monthly HOA neighborhood. They were born in the Netherlands, and had a Dutch flag sticker on their front window, maybe 3 inches tall. They got a $75 fine in the mail. Her dad read the rules over extremely well. Went out and photographed over 75 US flags, went to the head officer and said he wouldn't be writing a $75 check until a person writes up all 75 of the following addresses, as there's no exception for an American flag. They dismissed his fine. Edit. If I remember correctly, the rule was nothing visible in your windows when the blinds are closed. Right now there's huge battle over how red mulch can be. I'm not sure if it's the same thing, but my condo corp gave me a great experience once. They were responsible for the exterior of our home. They all had to match on my street. Though I owned the thing, I had no power to, say, paint my front door a different color. Small thing I didn't care about giving up really. Then one day someone drives into my garage. It was a metal door. I had no idea what the hell happened, but there was a huge dent and black paint scraped off whatever car had basically tried to drive into my closed garage. So I call the condo guys and they tell me, I have to replace the panels from the same manufacturer. I have to pay for it myself because it isn't covered by their insurance, and maybe my homeowner's insurance will cover it, but probably not since it's a condo and blah blah. I don't know, but they were right. What I had wouldn't cover it. Anyways, get in touch with the garage guys. They don't make those doors anymore. I tell Condo Corp, they insist it must be the same door. So I just think what the hell and get a hammer and get inside the garage and pound it out as best I can. It looks like crap, but I don't care. So I get a knock on my door from someone from the corp. They came in person to tell me my garage door was not up to the standard of the neighborhood. Then I see they are parked in my drive, with a black van with the front all scratched to shit, and it clicks they are the fucking people who crashed into my driveway. I ask right away, they deny it, but the shade of black is actually slightly off and it's exactly the same color smeared all over my damn door. They assure me there is no way that happened, even though the outline of the dent looks like an exact match. So they are going to fine me if I don't fix my door, which is impossible, and I'm not even sure if the fine is legal. So in the end I refused to pay my bullshit fine and they stopped cutting my lawn, part of the condo fees. I refused to cut it myself. They threatened to fine me more for not keeping my lawn up to the standards of the neighborhood. By now it's been 4 weeks or so. It's time for me to pay my condo fees for the month, and I'm about to try to cancel the checks I'd given them. Whole thing is shit. Then I hear a weed eater, Someone is doing my lawn. I'm shocked and I go out and there is this kid working away. He stops and asked me what happened to your lawn. I start telling him and he stops me almost right at the start of the story and says he's sorry and yes, he's the one who hit my garage. He parked there the one day and just went stupid when he was gonna back up. He was in a hurry and had it in drive instead of reverse and gunned it. Then he tells me he filed the report before he went on vacation. He was just back now and didn't know he wasn't supposed to cut my lawn, and doesn't understand why they were denying everything when he reported it. So I call them immediately and tell them, look, I talked to underscore and he told me he did it and reported it. What the fuck? And they said they'd look into it. Then magically they would cut my lawn and they phoned me to tell me the fines would not be enforced because I couldn't get the same door due to reasons beyond anyone's control. But they still didn't apologize or fix my door. And the thing is, I never saw that kid who did the landscaping again. I don't know if they fired him or what. Yeah, I decided to move shortly after that. When I was about 10, a new neighborhood went up across the street from us that had an HOA. The houses were very nice and were probably worth $200K more than the average house in my town. My parents had owned our house for about 15 years at that point, and man did my dad like to piss them off. One story that sticks out is when I was a freshman in high school, my dad bought a large windmill meant for power. It wasn't one of the big ones you see, but smaller in size, probably a good 20 or so feet tall. The HOA in the neighborhood tried to get him to take it down since they deemed it an eyesore. My dad pretty much told them to get lost since they couldn't do anything. They ended up trying to sue us and the judge dismissed the case after my dad explained that the windmill was approved by the city planning committee and he had permits and that we weren't a part of the HOA. He still has it up and decorates it with lights for Christmas. Edit, so I talked to my mom this morning since this got big. Apparently he put the windmill up to help reduce our electricity costs since this area is pretty spendy. They didn't raise a fuss until after it was up. And there were things in the past they did to alienate us. We had about 3 or 4 acres of property and would ride motorcycles, and any time we did, people from the neighborhood would come over and ask us to stop riding them. When it was being built, the neighborhood tried to buy our property for pennies, but my parents said no, which caused a sore spot. Fun fact, a lot of my friends growing up live in that neighborhood. They tried to fine me $3,000 for cutting the top 2 inches off my lawn and reseeding it. Problem was, I had written approval from them from weeks before for the project, and all of a sudden they were labeling my lawn a construction zone. They want us to pay 2 years back pay. 2015 to 2016. We moved into that house in 2017. Edit. Wow, this blew up. Never thought that my top comment would be about HOA. So my dad was the king of lawn care. Had the best looking yard in the neighborhood. No contest. It might as well have been a 5-star golf course. My stepmom loved flowers and had many different types growing everywhere and looking like a palace garden. Then my dad gets in a car accident with my stepmom and their dog. My dad and the dog die. My stepmom goes into a coma for a month and wakes up with most of her lower body broken and paralyzed. A year later she moves back into the house, which has been generally taken care of, but not well maintained like it used to be. Virtually every immediate neighbor shows support and helps how they can. Then, the HOA, whose president lives like 4 houses away, sends her a letter saying the mailbox needs to be painted, the grass needs to be taken care of better, and the gardens need to be pruned/weeded. This absolutely wrecked my stepmom, and her mother took the letter to the HOA president and had some words for them. It's a good thing I live out of state, or I might have gone for a walk with a baseball bat. We had our lottery paved over the course of a week or so, and we required to park on the street while it happened. No biggie. Well, some guy late at night swerved to miss a cat with his Ford Expedition work truck and killed my Ford Fusion in the front, and pushed me enough to hop on the curb and backwards into my wife's car. My car was totaled, wife had to have repairs, and he went to jail for 2 months cause he ran. In the end, I got a new car, so it worked out. Fast forward 2 months after I get my new car, which was a first for me. I go to leave for work, and as I walk down my steps and look in the lot, I don't see my new car. I usually park it in the same space. Every time I finally found my car, on the other side and not in a spot I would ever park in. I figured my wife moved it or something for a weird reason. Texted her and she said she didn't. I then find out that the HOA decided to just tow and move my car because they had to fix a part of the lot and my car was in the way. I also find out that they moved about 5 cars, without asking. What irritated me the most was, I was home when they did it. I never got a call, an email, a knock, nothing. They just decided to tow and move it. I went back to check on my car and would you guess what? The plastic parts under my bumpers were scratched from being dragged on the pavement and the towing rig. I know it's just plastic and people can't really see it, but this was my first new car. I'm 2 months owning it and I just wanted to take care of it and keep it nice looking. In the end I had the HOA pay for the parts, but not the work. To this day, I'm still mad. I live in a condo with my dad and stepmom. My car at the time was, admittedly, a beater. The back end was duct taped up pretty bad and it had a lot of bumper stickers. My parents have really nice and new Buicks, so my 90s Oldsmobile parked outside and they parked in the garage. I went on spring break with my sister and came back to my car in the garage. Apparently, the neighbors were selling their condo, and my car, in another driveway and having nothing to do with their property, lowered their property value. They complained to the condo association, and until I sold that car I wasn't allowed to park it in the driveway or on the street. Parking on the street isn't allowed here anyway. By the time I sold my car they still hadn't sold their condo. It wasn't my Oldsmobile, it was the ugly white carpet in the bathroom. A guy with the name Bill Champion rose the ranks of the local board for a few years, became the president, and suddenly skipped town one night. Left his place empty without telling anyone he was leaving. Months later there was a large deficit in funds discovered that was fudged on the books. So all of the homeowners who had been paying into this large fund that is supposed to be there when roofs and fences need replacement were bamboozled by this guy with a, now, clearly fake name. He probably does this as a long con across the country, while profiting off of other shady dealings as well. Mine was actually my parents and it luckily didn't last too long. I lived across the street from the neighborhood park and home was boring. No one in the neighborhood was my age, so I just put my headphones in and get on the swing set and just get lost in the music. I was in middle school, didn't say a damn thing to anyone, didn't do anything but sit on a swing set for years. Well, one day a mom and her daughter moved into the neighborhood and she had a problem with the idea of a 13-year-old girl being in the same park as her daughter. She had a problem with it because apparently 13-year-olds had no business there and I should be forced to leave. Went to the HOA, they told her to fuck off because I knew the guy. The guy knew me, they knew I was cool. Bitch keeps spending the next few months harassing me every damn time I'm minding my own damn business on a swing set. Bitch keeps telling me I have to go home or she's calling the cops. Eventually HOA got sick of it and had a meeting, sat her down and told her to leave me alone. Had a board member tell me that he will write people up personally for political signs if our site manager refused to do it. I sent him the exact law that forbids him from doing that. Word for word that he cannot do it. Plain as day. He still did it and the person he wrote up called me directly, asking what the fuck was wrong with me. I told her it was closed out, destroyed from record, then called the board member with the attorney on the other line. The attorney literally told him to resign and move if he couldn't comprehend the massive lawsuit he very nearly got the HOA into. Source, Property Management Company. Edit, guys. I would not authorize an illegal violation like that. The board member wrote it himself without going through proper channels. Removed. Got a letter from our association telling us they were going to fine us because our dog caused turf damage in our yard. One of the bylaws was that you had to register your pets with the association. We didn't own a dog and they knew it. I told them to take their fine and shove it. The $50 we had to pay the association for a PDF of the bylaws when we sold the place was also ridiculous. I will never live in a community with an HOA again. As someone who works in the law enforcement industry, any HOA complaint that involves someone doing something that's against the HOA rules, but not actually breaking any legal statute. Oh, you don't allow homeowners to park in front of their house, only in their driveway? If it's not posted by the city or state, then it isn't a no parking zone and anyone can park there as long as they aren't blocking a driveway and are parked within 12 inches of the curb. There was this post recently on /r/best of legal advice where the HOA lost a $20 lawsuit over faulty playground equipment and they only had taken out enough insurance to cover $2 leaving the HOA members of the community liable for $88 each. This is not my story. I got it from a regular customer. Happened probably 15 or so years ago now. He used to live in an old stone farmhouse, and when he bought the place most of the farmland had been sold to a developer, leaving him with a 20-acre plot with the house in one corner. The developer put in a housing development next door and a few years later he gets a letter in the mail saying that his house is not following the HOA guidelines, and was behind on his dues and he owes them a buttload of money. Direct quote from the storyteller / and that they'll foreclose on his house if he didn't pay. He called them and pointed out that he's not a member of the HOA and they're welcome to try. So they filed a lien on his house and it was denied. They then tried to get him to sign up with the HOA and when he said no, they filed a lawsuit and tried to force him into the HOA, which failed. The whole thing was so ridiculous that it ended up on the local news. He then started getting reported for supposed code violations and after a couple dozen in few months' time he discovered that the person reporting him was a neighbor. The neighbor's backyard butted up against his yard and apparently both hated how his house looked and was on the HOA board. It took 2 more years and another lawsuit, and many police visits for this whole mess to run its course. Funniest part is that 4 years before I was told that story an electrical fire gutted the old farmhouse and the guy rebuilt on the other side of his property just to get away from the butthurt HOA guy. And since he didn't have to remove the old building he left it all gutted, fire blackened, and half collapsed right where the butthurt guy could see it from his bedroom window. Now I don't actually know how much of that is true, and how much is exaggerated, so take it with a grain of salt. But it's still a good story. Removed. I don't think I got a call from the real homeowners association, but I got a call from one during work. Me, thank you for calling Jimmy's Burger. This is Tim. How can I help? This is Bob from homeowners association. There seems to be a problem with your home. I need some information immediately. Am I speaking to the homeowner? Me, sir. This is a restaurant. He hangs up immediately. Had my car towed on a particular bad month. It was kind of the final kick to the balls that just topped it all off. Our condo, under a HOA, and also in a ghetto, this becomes relevant later, had 2 spots. Our friendly neighbors would constantly take our spot, even though in the agreement that spot was ours. If I was actually in my spot, the neighbors would double park and block me in. No amount of calling the HOA or bitching at the neighbors would get them to quit. One night after a particularly rough day I come back and the neighbors are parked in my spot. We call them, we knock on their door. They ain't moving and no one is responding. So I do what they have done for literally the last year I've lived there. I parked behind my spot, but unlike the asshole neighbors, I left them enough room to get out should they need to. Roommate gets up to go to work at 5 a.m., about 3 hours after I got home. Car's gone. Call the HOA. They've had it towed for not having a parking permit that no one else had and was most definitely not required in the agreement. Worse yet, it was towed by a friend of one of the HOA's board members, and they were intent on charging us $300 per day my car was put away. So not only did they selectively enforce some made-up policy, they were profiting from it, too. Further, they absolutely would not release my car back to me unless my name was on the pink slip. Problem was 1, it was under my grandfather's estate for insurance reasons, and 2, my mom had the pink slip, and she was an entire state north of us. Girlfriend went absolutely batshit insane on them and they agreed to release the car back to us for the generous price of $150, which thankfully a friend of mine lent me the money to pay. We ended up moving a couple months later. The fun part is my girlfriend went off on the HOA and suddenly they started issuing parking permits to everyone. And when we left, We most definitely just left all of the stuff we couldn't bring with us on the lawn and put out a curb alert for it, and the HOA was pissed. That's why I mentioned the ghetto part earlier. Last time I told this story on Reddit I got called a douche for negatively affecting property value of my neighbors. The thing is, all our neighbors' condos were in worse condition and worth more as scrap materials than an actual living space. My old HOA complained not once, but twice that I needed to keep the noise levels in my house down because my screaming toddler was disrupting the neighborhood. I don't have kids. Our neighborhood has been a target for thieves, and it seems like we would always hear about a house being robbed almost weekly. The HOA's response: lock all doors and install a security system. I now live in a non-HOA neighborhood. No complaints from the neighborhoods, and it's rare to hear anyone talk about their home being robbed and such. I will never live in an HOA ever again.